I'm Rachel Zegler, and please don't ask me if Katniss is in our film. She's not. It takes place 64 years in the past.
You're gonna miss her when she's gone, both in a literal sense.
Since Rachel Zegler began discussing her role as Snow White, she has received a great deal of criticism from fans who are incensed at her rudeness and entitlement. As a result, it is not surprising that her new Hunger Games film has made a lot of money. Fans of the film have been turned off by Rachel Zegler's rudeness and entitlement since she began doing interviews about Snow White because it seems like she has no respect for the original work. In addition to criticizing the film's depiction of true love and friendship, she has even hired her own co-star, claiming he may be cut entirely from the film.
She finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
The biggest issue, in the opinion of fans, has been Rachel's self-explanation and opinions about the film, which came out as blatantly insulting.
What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
When Rachel disclosed that she had never seen the original Snow White more than once, and that she had really been frightened of the film as a child, things only got worse.
I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. Doesn't sound like something a little kid would like. Was terrified of it. Never revisited Snow White again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years when I was doing this.
Fans were obviously devastated to hear this, because it seemed like the part had gone to the wrong person because Rachel doesn't seem to understand what she's been given. It also doesn't help that Rachel doesn't look like Snow White, and her singing hasn't been enough to persuade longtime fans that she's the right person for the job. Disney received criticism for replacing the seven dwarfs and altering the plot to make it more feminist, but Rachel's actions and her readiness to disparage the original film were the final straw for many fans, who are prepared to boycott the film. In fact, fans aren't just boycotting Snow White. They're boycotting Rachel's new film, The Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds, because it has received harsh criticism for keeping her bored after her offensive. Given that the film has largely failed at the box office and that it has had the worst opening release of any Hunger Games film, behavior fans believe Rachel shouldn't be receiving all these opportunities due to her personality. As a result, many have decided to boycott the film, and it appears that this may have worked as well. Despite the excitement that followed years of waiting for a new film in the universe, fans simply weren't there for Rachel Zegler. Because Rachel had to follow Jennifer Lawrence's lead and become the new face of the Hunger Games, she was already under a lot of strain, making this a dangerous release. The fact that Rachel's character Lucy Gray differs greatly from the Katniss that many people grew up with greatly influenced how people viewed this film. Even before the film's worldwide release, Rachel was the target of a lot of criticism, with many pointing out that the film may have been completely unnecessary and that it was simply too long for so little to happen in it. It also didn't help that Rachel Zegler was the one who had to try to keep the audience's attention, as the first two Hunger Games films are actually certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, scoring an impressive 84 and 90%. Lucy was a much better performer than Katniss, and her personality can be described as strong and bubbly, which almost seems to stand out strangely in the Hunger Games universe. And even the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 and 2 each scored 70% on the scale. This is why, after all the expectations, it was hugely disappointing to see the 63% score on this new movie. The movie was predicted to only gross about $59 million in its opening weekend, which is a lot lower than the previous movies. However, it's important to note that the budget was only at around $100 million, meaning it's more than likely that the studio will break even on this one, even if they don't scare any huge records. But for comparison, this is still less than half of the earnings from the previous worst debut, which was Mockingjay Part 2, which made $102.7 million in the opening weekend. Things were always going to be a bit harder with this new project, since even the book version sold way less than the original Hunger Games trilogy, so Rachel really had massive pressure to make this work, and it seems like the expectations were simply too high for that. Rachel did share a bit of her process in trying to do her best for the movie, and she even revealed where she got her inspiration from the role she allegedly saw Beauty and the Beast on Broadway, and it's what originally inspired her to do musical theater.
I just fell in love with the idea of performing live and the big, beautiful costumes and everything in between. I loved it.
But as a child, she was also greatly influenced by movies, especially the Oscar Isaac starring film Inside Llewyn and Davis.
I think I was like 13 years old when I saw that, which is way too young to see Inside Llewyn Davis, or at least too young to understand it fully. But it was seeing a Latino in a space where being a Latino was not the basis of his character. He just kind of got to exist. And he got to give a brilliant performance. And he got to check off all the boxes of the things that he's amazing at. Because he's an amazing musician, an amazing singer, an amazing actor, funny, and self-deprecating and amazing. And I just remember looking at it and watching it and being like, I want to do that.
Clearly, Rachel expected the role of Lucy Gray to be what catapulted her into stardom, and she even compared landing the role to Oscar Isaac and Inside Llewyn Davis, saying that it's exactly what she's been working for and trying her hardest to achieve. Although she's well on her way to realizing those dreams, she's still far from being as well-loved as someone like Oscar Isaac.
Kind of viewed Lucy Gray in a way. It's not the same, probably to the general public, but to me it was my Llewyn Davis, where I was like, I get to check the boxes of all the things I know I can do, and also stretch myself into this version of an actor that I never thought I could be with all the action stuff. That I really didn't think I could do. On Shazam, I didn't have to do any of the action bits.
But given how the film has been performing, it's easy to assume that she may have had unrealistic expectations because it doesn't seem like her efforts were sufficient to make people forget about her past. Conduct that makes you want to watch the film The Saddest Thing is that it sounds like Rachel really tried to go all out for this film, as she talked about how she grew up with the books and how she even adored songbirds and snakes when they first came out, envisioning herself as Lucy Gray someday.
Watched her conception in the public. Like, I was there when the book was released. I was waiting for that book to come out. I was so excited. I had no idea what it was going to be about. And when I read it, it just felt like this is the thing. I grew up watching Jennifer Lawrence do everything that she is amazing at. She was funny, she was endearing, she was tough, she was an action star, and watching her do it like it was nothing in those original films. And so I was reading this book being like, this would be the opportunity of a lifetime.
It's been wonderful to see Rachel genuinely excited about playing a part for once, but she's also received some backlash for the way her entitlement comes through even after Snow White's criticism. It seems like Rachel genuinely thought that no one else could have played this part, which some fans don't feel good about. Many people online even conjectured about whether or not songbirds and snakes would be able to save her reputation, but it doesn't seem like this has swayed the public in any way. I think she's cursed somehow. West Side Story and Shazam! Fury of the Gods were supposed to be her big break, but both movies blew horribly. I think Hunger Games and Snow White will make her a complete failure, but some people remained hopeful because the film had a lot of potential. As of right now, it doesn't seem like many people have been swayed by the film, especially since it did so poorly at the box office, and those who were unsure about Rachel definitely don't seem to have been the first to see it. However, I believe that those who have a negative opinion of her based on social media won't change their minds regardless of whether songbirds and snakes as well. If it does, though, Snow White will undoubtedly attract a little more attention from the general public. Like with Snow White, Rachel hasn't really been helping herself with her interviews about the film. It seems like she lacks the media training to say the right things. In fact, it sounds like Rachel even thinks that Lucy was supposed to be more successful than Jennifer Lawrence's character Katniss, and she allegedly tried her hardest to make Lucy shine more.
I just wanted people to miss her when she was off screen. That was like the thing that I wanted to capture the most, because I would miss her when she wasn't on the page. And so I just remember thinking, like, this is how people felt probably watching her trajectory in the Hunger Games, where they were probably in the Capitol all cozy watching television, And every time she wasn't in the news, it'd be like, it's boring news day.
It's nothing new for Rachel to make everything about herself, but it's more of a reason why fans of the first Hunger Games didn't want to watch this new film, which is meant to take away from Katniss. It's no surprise that the film did so poorly compared to its predecessors, because no one wants to watch someone take away Katniss's shine, especially when it's Rachel Zegler, who already feels entitled and superior to everyone else. It also doesn't make anyone want to see the film any more than they want to see Snow White, as Rachel is doing the exact same thing she did during the Snow White press. Do you guys think Rachel could have done something to keep this film from failing? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to watch this other video.